Every single thought you have, every move you make, even the feeling of your own heartbeat, it's all powered by this incredible microscopic wiring inside your body. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the unsung heroes that make all of that possible, the neurons.
I mean, really think about that for a second. That lightning-fast reaction, right? That instinct to just yank your hand away from danger. What in the world is actually happening inside you to make that possible in less than the blink of an eye?
Well, the answer is this amazing little cell right here, the neuron. This is the basic building block of our entire nervous system. You can think of it as our body's own biological, super-fast electrical wiring, carrying critical messages at absolutely unbelievable speeds.
Okay, so to really get how a message travels from point A to point B, we first need to get to know our messenger. Let's break down the different parts of a neuron and see what makes it tick.
The whole journey kicks off right here, at the dendrites. The best way to think about these are as the neuron's antennas, or, its ears. They have all these little branches, and they're constantly listening, just waiting to pick up signals from all the neighboring cells. This is ground zero for information.
So once a signal comes in through those dendrites, it gets processed here in what's called the cell body, or the soma. This is the command center. It's got the nucleus, it's got all the machinery to keep the neuron alive, and this is crucial. It decides whether or not a signal is important enough to be passed on.
And if that signal gets the green light from the command center, well, it gets shot down this thing, the axon. This is the superhighway of the neuron. It's this one long cable specifically designed to shoot that message, that electrical signal, all the way to its destination.
Now, here's where things get really cool. How do these neurons get to be so fast? Well, a lot of them are wrapped in this fatty layer called the myelin sheath. It's almost exactly like the plastic insulation you'd see on an electrical wire. It stops the signal from leaking out, and more importantly, it makes it travel way, way faster. It's a biological speed booster.
All right, so we've met the messenger. Now let's talk about the message itself. And it's not a text, it's not an email. It's this amazing electrical event called an action potential. This is the spark that really kicks off the whole journey. Okay, so before a neuron even thinks about firing, it's just sitting there in what's called a resting state. And this number, -70 millivolts, is super important. It means the inside of the cell is negatively charged compared to the outside. It's not just dormant, it's primed. It's ready, like a loaded spring, just waiting for that one little nudge.
Then, when a strong enough signal arrives, it's go time. First, as you see in step 2, these tiny channels burst open and a flood of positive sodium ions rush into the cell. That flips the charge all the way up to positive. That's depolarization. Then, almost instantly, other channels open up and positive potassium ions rush out, bringing the charge right back down. This whole up and down wave of electricity is the action potential. It's the message, and it just flies down the axon before a little pump resets everything back to the start.
So how does that signal move so incredibly fast? Well, remember that myelin sheath we talked about? It's not a perfect tube. It has these little gaps. So the electrical spark doesn't just flow smoothly, it literally jumps from one gap to the next. This is called saltatory conduction, and it's like skipping a stone across a pond instead of trying to swim the whole way. It's a brilliant biological shortcut, and it's why our reflexes are so ridiculously fast.
So our electrical spark has now raced all the way to the end of the axon. But it's hit a roadblock. It can't just jump over to the next neuron. There's a microscopic gap in the way, called the synapse. So it has to perform a kind of chemical handoff.
Now, there are a couple ways to cross this gap. On the left, you've got the electrical synapse. It's a direct, physical connection. Super fast, but you don't see it very often. On the right is the one we're going to focus on, because it's way more common, the chemical synapse. This is where chemical messengers have to physically ferry the signal across the gap. It's a little slower, sure, but it gives the system so much more control and flexibility.
So how does this amazing chemical handoff actually work? Well, when that electrical spark arrives at the end of the line, it basically acts like a key, opening up channels for calcium to flood in. This rush of calcium is the trigger that causes these little bubbles, filled with chemicals called neurotransmitters, to dump their contents into the gap. Those chemicals then float across and lock into receptors on the next neuron, which either gets it excited, that's an EPSP, a go signal, or tells it to calm down. That's an IPSP, a stop signal. Just like that, the message goes from electrical to chemical and then right back to electrical again. It's amazing.
And the chemicals that do this job are just fascinating. You've got some, like glutamate, that are the excitatory cheerleaders. They're basically screaming, "Fire!" at the next neuron. Then you have others like GABA, which are inhibitory.
They're the calm ones whispering, hey, hold your fire. And then you've got the really complex ones, the modulators, like dopamine and serotonin. They don't just say go or stop, they act like volume knobs, adjusting the tone and intensity of the entire conversation between neurons.
You know, we've just followed a single message on its incredible journey from one cell to another. But the real magic, the part that makes us us, happens when we zoom out and see how trillions of these signals all work together.
Because not all neurons are the same. They have specialized jobs. Your sensory neurons carry information inward, from your senses to your central nervous system, your brain and spinal cord. That's the ouch, that's hot signal. Then your motor neurons carry commands outward, from your brain to your muscles. That's the pull your hand away now signal. And linking them all together in the middle are the interneurons, the processors that make the decision. It's a beautiful, efficient system.
And here's the big takeaway from all this. Every single thing you experience, every sight, every sound, every memory, every emotion, is the end result of this exact process. It's a symphony of tiny electrical sparks and chemical handoffs. It's how you learn, it's how you form memories. Trillions of these connections are firing every single second to quite literally build the world you perceive around you.
And that kind of leaves us with a pretty mind-bending final thought, doesn't it? If our entire reality, our consciousness, our personality, everything we think of as us is just built on these simple little sparks passing from one cell to another, where in that incredibly complex dance of ions and chemicals does the real you actually begin? Someone to chew on. Thanks for joining me.